Alright, so welcome to the channel and everything. So I'm just here to talk about God Year 3 in builds and things, because some people still, especially for new beginner players that are just coming to the game, it's really simple to make builds depending on what you really want in your playstyle on the game. But I'm just gonna give you the best type of build and playstyle that can really help you out, especially if you're a beginner. So here's what I'm just gonna say. There's 3 different weapon types that I will have to say that literally are the best types of weapons to use in the game, which is, you've got the short blade, which is really good. Don't underestimate the short blade, because the short blade can deal a lot of damage at the cost of literally no stamina. The variant Scythe is also the second weapon I would say that's literally one of the best weapons in the game, because you can just basically break and destroy bonds with this. I'm talking about non-stop breaking bonds, and breaking bonds is really important because you can deal more damage if you have the right build on, especially with a devour, or if you're using an acceleration trigger that has breaker on it, that lets you do 30% more damage to parts that are broken. And last but not least, the I would have to say it's a toss-up, but if you're really trying to go for a run-of-the-mill build and you're a beginner, mostly, I'd say the biting edge would be the 3rd most powerful weapon in the game, only because in glaive form you really have the advantage of attacking multiple times, especially if you are using a stamina build. And I'm just gonna tell you exactly what that means. It's basically if you have all of your burst art links and your acceleration trigger plus your engage effects, if all of them match, including your link plugins that are on your weapons, you see how my weapon says instinct step, that's a burst link plugin, so you have to pay attention to that. And basically what you want is to lower stamina cost of everything. You want to just find anything that says lower stamina cost, even for your install skills. As you can tell at the bottom of my screen, my install skills are pretty simple. I'm just using run-of-the-mill things right now in order. You want to accommodate your weapon for the stuff that you have. You want to lower stamina cost, you want to make sure that everything matches up. So here's what you should do. Especially if you're using the dual swords and you use the switch glaive form, which is the staff, all you want to do is just get up close to the enemy and just go on a barrage and attack multiple times, and just make sure you use less stamina as possible, especially with all of your plugins. You have different types of plugins. I'll just show you the different types. Alright, so here's the different types of plugins. Alright, so you got plugins for melee weapons, guns, and shields, but every time you go into burst mode, it applies for everything. So here's what you want. Alright, so for my and you want to go with weapons. In the early game, what you want to do is, with the money that you have, at least if you make it to a story rank 12 or story rank 15, you want to use that to make the reshimp weapons. The reshimp weapons have 4 abandoned god art slots, which are free slots that you can just install whatever install skill that you want. And when you do that, you have a better chance of dealing more damage or creating more after effects on your weapon that will help you a lot whenever you're fighting either multiple origami or just one origami. but it will help you in the long run. So here's what I have for this. Like, for right now, I'm just going to use the spear as an example. I'm basically using a few of the level, and by the way, you want to have level 10 gear. This is just for beginning gear and stuff like that. Like, it's just to show you exactly how to get your build off the ground earlier on in the game, because you're not going to be doing a lot of damage and you're going to be breaking bonds, but you're just not going to be doing the top-notch damage that you're going to want to do. So you've got to balance it out. So here's what I'm doing with my stuff at the very beginning of the game, because I'm only story level 50, and I've already played and beat the game before, but I'm just doing this, you know, just to show how it works for beginner players and anybody that is new to the game. So here's how the game really works. Alright, so you've got your loadout. Alright, you've got your weapon that you use that has a bunch of abilities and effects and skills on it, which has a burst plugin. All three weapons have burst plugins, and remember what I told you, burst plugins is the thing that's right below the name of the weapon. Like, you see how it says Reshimp Twin Instinct Step? The Instinct Step is the name of the plugin, and you can easily look at your burst plugins right here. Like, Instinct Step is a burst plugin, Torque is a burst plugin for your gun, Synchro is a burst plugin for your shield, and Clear Mind is a burst control unit, but it's still a burst plugin. All of these are burst plugins that basically show you exactly what you're doing whenever you go into burst mode, because burst mode basically is the meta for the game. Like, you basically have to be in burst mode to be able to accommodate for damage and to be able to progress any further. Like, burst mode is just where it's at. So yeah, whether you're using a gun build or a sword build, it doesn't really matter. You have to be in burst mode. So here's what you really need. Alright, so you need your burst plugins, and you need your install skills to accommodate. So install skills are basically skills that are active whenever you are in burst mode. As soon as you get to burst mode 1, or burst mode 2, or burst mode 3, you have levels in which your burst mode goes into, which is the 1, 2, 3, as I just said. So when you're in burst mode 1, these are the skills that are active whenever you go into burst mode 1. As you can see, I have a level 6 Piercer, I have a level 4 Tricky, I have a level 7 Sharp Analysis, and I have Bottomless. Alright, so I'm just going to explain a little bit of what each one does, because not a lot of people understand. So this is just to help you level your character if you're not leveled. Sharp Analysis and Bottomless, like, both of them really help out if you get them earlier. If you get the Abandoned God Arc earlier in the game, which you can purchase Abandoned. You can purchase Abandoned God Arcs, but like I said, you have to wait for the shop person to arrive, which usually they won't arrive until after story level 15 or story level 25. So you're gonna have to get that part down packed. And another thing is, you have to make sure that once you unlock the acceleration trigger option, that you want to level up your acceleration trigger as fast as possible. So what Sharp Analysis does is it increases your acceleration trigger analysis rate by 2% per level. Well, yeah, it increases your acceleration trigger analysis rate. So what that means is whenever you beat like a stage or a level or something, it increases your acceleration trigger analysis, which is this thing. You see how it says analyzed right there below the condition 1? That's what it's talking about. You have to basically use the acceleration trigger in order to let it function, to let it level up. There's only 5 levels per acceleration trigger, which it can increase in either duration or it can increase in percentages that you want to reduce it in. So, well, reduce the effects or increase the effects. So here's what I have to say. The best acceleration triggers to use earlier on in the beginning of the game, of course, is more than likely the bread and butter ones, such as if you really want to go both ways, you can use Avenger. I highly recommend using Avenger. Although Avenger basically is a little bit different and a little bit tough to do, like at certain points, like you gotta avoid damage for like more than 20 seconds. It really helps you out whenever you're getting that extra attack damage and attack power speed. Like, you're getting both at the same time. So you're really not losing out. You just have to avoid taking damage for 20 seconds. And you don't really have to be close up to the enemy whenever you are, you know, doing this. You just have to make sure you are nearby. And another thing is that you want to check your acceleration trigger requirements, because this one says you need to unlock the other acceleration triggers, you have to use certain ones. So in order to unlock this one, you have to use this one and level up the 2. So whenever I have sharp analysis on, I'm basically helping myself level up my my acceleration trigger faster. You want to do that at the beginning of the game so that you don't have to work as hard trying to level your acceleration trigger up, because the higher your acceleration trigger level, the better, and the better benefits that you get from your acceleration trigger, because your acceleration trigger is what makes or breaks you in this game, because it decides what your build is and what your build is going to be portraying. Is this a DPS build? Is this a gun build? Is this a step build? Is this a defense build? Is this a OP recovery build? Like all that other kind of things. Like there's a lot of builds in this game that are really good, and I'll explain each one in my videos and to come, because I have part 2 of this video that's coming out right after this. But here's just saying that you could really benefit from these skills. So here's what I'm using right now. Is I'm using the stamina saver for stamina. Alright, because stamina is the most important thing in the game. So here's what you want. You want to use as less stamina as possible, since the game is kind of like, you know, hinting it at you and just, you know, pushing it in your face. Like stamina is required like for everything, and you need stamina. So especially when you're attacking and you run out and it's just chaotic and you don't know how to get past a certain origami, and you're sitting there fighting it for a long time and it takes forever, well, you might want to check your stamina and see if that's the problem, because a lot of times you run out before you even realize. So here's what I'm basically using to, you know, lighten the load for the character. So each acceleration trigger has requirements that you have to perform in order to activate the acceleration trigger, which for this one you only need to perform ground combo finisher 3 times. That means you only have to do a full combo 3 times on an origami, and then it activates, and it'll even tell you the duration of how long it lasts. It'll last 15 seconds. So that's exactly how long it lasts. Like, I mean, it's pretty good. So anything that helps you let it last longer, like acceleration trigger fall off, will just be even better. And that helps. I'll explain what each property means, because a lot of people in this game don't understand that if you just don't accommodate a build that works for both you and your team, then a lot of times you're going to find yourself not really doing as good as you should have, and not doing a lot of damage that you might believe that you should be doing. So in a sense, you want to start off with the basics if you are still playing through the storyline of the game and are a beginner. So Stamina Saver is what I would recommend for beginners, because all you have to do is do 3 combo finishers and you use less stamina than normal. I know the ladder wants to use Warrior, but like, yes, you get an extra 10% attack on melee attacks, which it's not bad, but like in the long run, I'm not sure if, you know, you want your benefits to be just purely and solely attack, or if you just are looking at the long game. If you're looking in the long game, then stamina is going to be your best friend. But if you're just looking for like run-of-the-mill, then yeah, attack, the extra 10% attack later on is going to make a difference whenever you are putting down hits in the game. Like, I would recommend Warrior for people that are using the dual swords, because the dual swords take a long time to deal damage just in general. So you could easily just use that and adapt with it. But if you're not as good as you would like to be with the dual weapons, then I would say use the stamina trigger, because the stamina trigger is going to let you attack more times than not whenever you are doing damage. Now there's another one with OP Saver, which this one helps out with gun builds. Anything that has to deal with reducing OP cost, or anything that deals with OP, has to deal with the gun. And see, with the gun, you can do many different things with the gun. The gun is actually very, very underhanded in this game. Like, I haven't really seen that many people use gun builds or, like, you know, express how good the gun can be. But the gun can solo creatures in like less than a couple of shots. Like, you can deal massive amounts of damage with just the gun alone. And the gun, to be honest with you, is actually more efficient than melee attacking. But I'm just gonna go with the latter and say that most people that are beginners are either 1, using melee builds, or 2, half of them are probably thinking about using the gun, or some of them are just using both melee and both guns at the same time, which is fine, because that's what you should cater to, is using both at the same time. Because if you're far away from the creature, if the creature goes in rage or some shit, then you can just attack the creature, and then you can just, you know, bone the creature from a distance if you are using the gun. So that would really help out. Alright, so the next one is Assassin. Okay, so this one, if you're just looking, if you have a high damage character, and this is only if you have a high damage character, and I recommend using the Assassin trigger with the variant Scythe, because a variant Scythe is already pretty fast, but if you make it faster, then it'll just be even better. Like, you can recover a lot of OP just by using the variant Scythe quicker, and you can break bonds faster with the variant Scythe than most other weapons. So if you get like an extra maybe 15% of melee attack speed for 20 seconds, which is a really long time, and that could really be a game changer in a battle turnaround, like, for the whole team. Because if you're sitting there with like an extra 15% attack speed with your acceleration trigger, and it lasts for like 20 seconds, and you're just putting out, like, that's not bad at all. Like, I would recommend this one if you are in the middle ground. If you're using strictly a melee build with high damage weapons, then I would recommend using the Assassin. Now for the Avenger, I recommend the same thing, but like, you're gonna have to really creative person. Like, you've got to be focused and everything to use Avenger. Like, I would say Avenger is the better of the two, but if you don't want that less if you don't want to lose out on a benefit because of skill or something, if you're not doing that great, then I would choose Assassin over Avenger. But some of the other skills like Lunatic and OP Saver are pretty good too. Because I'll just tell you, Lunatic does the same, similar to what Avenger does, except for Lunatic basically ignores armor, ignores damage for armor. Like, if you're attacking an Origami, you can ignore some of their defense and, like, just deal a crap ton of damage to them directly. So, that's another good one to turn to later on, but that's only if you're using a really high damage weapon. And, for the most part, I would just recommend, if you're using any weapon that has to deal with ignoring defense, then the Buster Sword or the Hammer will help you out. More so, the Hammer might help you out more than the Buster Sword, because the only advantage that the Hammer has over the Buster Sword is the simple fact that the Hammer has a transformation mode that lets it hit really freaking hard, so you have to watch out for that. But anyhow, moving on, you have all of your acceleration triggers, and each one has an effect, and each one benefits you in different ways. So it really does play a big part of, you know, which ones that you're going to use whenever you are doing your damage. Now, this one right here is pretty good if you, at the beginning of the game, if you perform 2 devours. Like, you basically, if you are rushing and going through it really fast, Breaker can really help you, because if you break a bond on a Origami, then that's a 30% increase of attack to those broken bond units. Like, I'm talking about, like, that's a big difference. That 30% attack to the broken bonds really does show whenever you break the bonds on a Origami. And you've only got to perform 2 breakable bond devours, which, in order to do a breakable bond devour, you just basically pressed, you know, R1 and triangle, which is simple. So another one is this one. I recommend this one because this is what I was talking about earlier, how if you're playing with a balanced character, like if you're using both melee and guns, then this will really help because you have link burst rounds. Alright, so whenever you fire someone with a burst round, it will basically make their burst level go to 2 instead of 1. So that is already a step above the other ones. Because if they go to burst mode 2 and they do a devour, then they can easily just go to burst mode 3. And being in burst mode 3 from the start just like enhances everything, because then you don't have to worry about falling out of combat to try to go back into burst mode. Like, that's what usually happens whenever you're in combat. You have to fall out of combat to go back into burst mode, because when you lose burst mode, you kind of lose all the benefits and the damage that you have from the burst plugins that your character has installed. So basically, you have to go back to that point and be like, hey, I'm gonna have to reactivate burst mode again, and then have to do it all over. So yeah, you might want to look into that. Okay, so as I was saying, you want to make sure you have the right acceleration trigger first for your character, because acceleration trigger is the most important thing in the game, and it really makes or breaks your build because it's the core foundation of the build. And if you don't have the right one and that you're using, then everything else is just gonna fall apart, and then you can just be looking at your build like, what the heck am I doing? Like, I need something that's stronger. So yeah, you're gonna have to work with the best builds that you can possibly make that works for you and your character and what your main build schematics are. So you basically have to do the whole dang on thing. And as you can tell, everything is pretty much well put together. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is well, I'm going to probably talk about it more in my next video, because most people don't do this, and it's kind of like a secret, and I kind of don't want to spoil the secret, but I'm going to anyway. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is engaged, and then afterwards I'm going to talk about the burst control units and which ones to use. I'm kind of going to go down the middle up on burst control units, because it's all up to the person and their preference, but I'm just going to give you the ones that are actually useful and beneficial, because these are the ones that are actually going to work and that actually matter. So I'm just going to tell you the ones that actually matter the most. Okay, so as you can tell, I built a character that's an all-round build for the beginning of the game, because like this is literally what you can do if you are at least about story rank 40, and you can deal a lot of damage, or even a lot more damage, farming for certain weapons. But if you don't have the weapons that you really want or really need per se at the beginning, then you're gonna have to do a little bit more farming for it. I mean, that's just how it is. Like, you just gotta farm for the better weapons overall, because if you don't, then you're not going to be doing the substantial amount of damage that you could be doing, and then you're just going to, you know, have to work harder for that later. But anyhow, this is more of a balanced type build. It might not look like much because it's at the beginning of the game, but it actually deals a pretty substantial amount of damage. And not only does it deal a substantial amount of damage, it basically can help you out when it comes to fighting multiple origami and making your build for late game. So this is pretty much like a starter build for late game. Like late game, this build is really broken. Like, you're basically starting yourself up for a really decent build. Like, if you just run, like, let's say if you made it to the end of the game and you still had this build schematics and this build setup, you're pretty much gonna be really like good, because you're gonna be doing a substantial amount of damage, you're gonna be helping your teammates, and you're gonna be keeping up the rest of what you need. So I'm gonna talk about engage. Now, I have a video that I'm gonna make on engage next, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about it and just explain to you what engage. Engage is basically whenever you get really close to your teammate and that bar, that little circle thing fills up. Basically, whenever the engage fully fills up, you can basically use the ability of yourself and your teammate's ability all at the same time, along with the effect that is active with the engage itself, and along with the burst being activated. So what that means is that when burst is activated, whenever your engage is active, that means you're going to do all of your burst effects plus the engage effect plus the acceleration trigger effects if you have them active. So here's what the engage effects are. So whenever you engage, these effects are going to be active. Alright, so shared supply basically is extensive effects of consumables with each other. So most of the time when you engage, you're trying to heal your team. That's pretty much what engage is. Like, you're trying to heal yourself or heal your team, because most of the time when you're close together with your partner, you don't really realize it, but that little circle thing above the character is filling up. When it turns all the way yellow, it basically lets you press L2 and R2 to fully engage. So here's the abilities and the effects that happen as soon as you engage, and I'm going to explain why engage is literally very important in this game, because like, if you don't abuse the engage ability, then you would just be crazy not to, because there's several things that you can do outside of the combo window in your engage abilities that you wouldn't even realize that is really going to help you out, even if you don't have your burst control activated. So here's what they have. Alright, so that is for consumables. So as soon as you go into your burst mode, you can easily just use more consumables to try to heal your team, because it gives you time, because it has a time limit, like whenever the circle runs out, basically. You can actually increase the reduce the fall off of your engage effect by equipping install skills, which install skills are the things that I mentioned earlier. They're skills that you install into your weapons from abandoned god arcs. So you might want to, you know, do that so that you can get the best skills possible. So here you are. Alright, so what you want is to get the best one possible for the engage effect for your team. Alright, and by the way, whenever the engage effect happens, both characters' engage effects are active. That means if one person has an engage effect like Unsustainable Appetite, that means you're gonna get that as well as the other person. So you're gonna get their buff and they're gonna get your buff. Both of you are gonna have the same buffs. So you don't have, so if you have a really good engage effect with somebody else's engage effect, then that is going to be really good, because then you have a double whammy combo. And that's what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about engage effect combos, and how engage effect combos play a very big part in the game, because if you don't abuse those combos, then when you're in combat, it's going to take you a little bit longer than normal. And most people don't abuse the engage effect, but I use everything at once. So like I'm trying to get the best benefits out of each and every skill in the game, which is what you want. So here's what you want to do. Alright, so let's say if I have the Unsustainable Appetite that increases Devour attacks by 35%, and my partner has the 35% engage effect as well, then that's actually really good. If you have the same engage effect, that's good. If you have different engage effects, that's also even better, because whenever you have different engage effects, different combos mixed together. So here's what you want. So I'm just going to explain a little bit of both. Alright, so this one is called Devastating Strike, which increases melee attack power against weak points. Alright, that can combo well with someone that has the same engage effect, or engage effect that does something similar, because you want to mix combos together, or engage effect that increases melee attack power. That's what you want. Or you can have somebody with a completely different one that heals you. So as long as you're getting attack power or something that heals you, then it'll be fine. You want something that's going to benefit, that's, you know, going to benefit you in the long run. I don't recommend the defense stuff, because like nobody really goes for it, so it's not really as important as the damage. So you might want to just go for mostly attack engage effects, because that really helps the team to kill the origami faster, which is, you know, the way how, you know, how it is. So yeah. Another one is Overflowing Catalyst. That one's not really all that great, because BA effects are just effects that your weapon have whenever you are in burst mode. This one is pretty interesting, because basically all it does is basically, you know, if you get a debuff, then it's basically you can just stack it. Like if you get poison on a weapon, you can just stack that debuff if you get the poison. Like that's all you can do, which is not bad. Some people have poison on their weapons, which is really not a bad thing to have, because it's actually kind of rare to do that. and it's also kind of rare to use poison guns. Like if you're using a gun and you put poison on it, or seize or bind, that's another thing that you can use, so take that into account. Divine Touch is pretty good. Basically, Link Aid, I'll explain what Link Aid is. Link Aid is whenever a character becomes, like, you know, incapacitated and on the ground, you have to use Link Aid in order to revive them. So yeah, whenever they're on the ground and you have Divine Touch and you're and engaged with another character and you have somebody that's down, you can fully restore them to their HP if you recover them. Because a lot of times whenever you restore someone and if you don't have this ability or something like that, then you might not restore their full HP. You might only restore like maybe 10% of their HP and not the full HP. But you get how that one works. So another one is called Predatory Hunger, which you can restore 5 HP on a Devour, which I don't really think is that useful. But if you are devouring like massively, if you have a Devour build, then it's gonna break bonds really fast and you're gonna be in burst control most of the time. Then you're gonna just destroy the freaking origami like it's nothing, because that's like jumping the gun and just going straight for the bond breakage and the damage. So if you get 35% of well, if you're using the acceleration trigger, that gives you 35% of Devour attacks plus an engage effect that gives you another boost to your Devour effect, which would be well, yeah, which is this one right here. Then you would be doing massive amounts of damage with your Devour attacks. Like, you would just be going off the wall with a Devour. Like, one Devour could have a chance to break entire bonds, and you could just be dealing massive amounts of damage. So that would really help out. But anyhow, back to this. I don't see some of these as useful because a lot of them don't really spell for much. This one is okay because basically it increases a shield's deployment speed by 25% and expands the guard range. If you are using a dive build and you have a dive build and like you're using dive and you have the acceleration trigger Skydiver, well, not the acceleration trigger Skydiver, but the engage effect Skydiver, and you're using a dive build, then you could be doing a lot of damage with just the shield alone by just charging in and staggering the origami. But that's how that works. This one increases movement speed by 25%, which I can tell you right now, it's very beneficial to have this one. And like I said, the trick to getting the BA effect, not the BA effects, but the engage effects, is by playing assault missions and playing with other characters that have different engaged effects than you. That's how you gain more engaged effects. So that's the easiest way to do it. Oh, and as I was talking about, if you're using a dive build with your acceleration trigger, then this one's pretty good because all you have to do is just use the dive attack. And dive attack is pretty good because, like, let's say you mix your let's say this. You see how it says Skydiver? let's say you mix your Skydiver with Breaker. Alright, so let's say you break a bond on the origami, and you use an engage effect, and your engage effect says dive gives you 20% attack whenever you do an attack. Alright, so basically you'll be doing 50% more attack up on those broken bond parts, and you'll be doing massive amounts of damage. Like, it's just ridiculous what you can do with that. Like, if you have Breaker, you can mix Breaker with your skydiving engaging effect and make it become 50% attack against those broken bonds. Like, that's like really good, because not only is your dive speed increased, but your distance is increased too, and your attack is also increased by 20. That means that automatically whenever you become engaged, you and your partner's attack and dive speed all automatically become 20%, and like you're getting a 30% boost of attack from broken bond parts. That's 50% more attack whenever a bond part breaks. So that means you're going to be doing lots of damage in your engaged form, whether you're in your engaged form or you're in your acceleration trigger form. You're going to be doing massive amounts of damage, and guess what? It's only at the cost of 2 breakable bond devours. Like, and it lasts for 15 seconds. So for 15 seconds, you're going to be doing 50% more damage on broken bond parts. That's going to, like, that's going to destroy a origami really fast. And that's for you and your teammates, because you and your teammates are going to get that buff. Yeah, you and your teammates are going to get the buff of both Breaker and the skydiving engage effect. So that's going to save you and your team some time. So you might want to think about that build, because that's actually one that could help the entire team right off the bat. Like, doing those bonds, like breaking those bonds, is really important, because it basically speeds up the process of killing the origami. So if you want to use that build, then go ahead, because like it is viable. I can show you exactly what it looks like in game, because I do have access to that build. It is viable and it does work. Another one is Unsustainable Appetite. And I know most people don't think about this a lot, but Devastating Strike would be good if it was more kosher, because if you're attacking and you're specifically attacking the weak spot of an origami, then you gotta be really focused, and half the time you're not gonna be focused on that. Like, it's just gonna be really bad, and that's only if you're using a weapon like a sniper or a gun like that, and you just pinpoint the weak spot of the origami and you instantly break the bond. Like, that's a more efficient way to kill an origami, is using a sniper rifle, and you target the weak spot of the origami and you blast at it, and then the bond breaks. But I mean, like, that's gonna just take time. That's only if you are really putting the effort into running that type of skill build set. Like if you're doing that, then that's fine, because there are people that do that all the time. Like, it's not that hard, but that's only if you really want to do that. So another thing is Flailing Assault. Flailing Assault is the same thing, except for it's the elemental weakness. So this has the same effect. Like, whenever there's an elemental weakness of the enemy, you can either use a melee weapon or a gun and blast at it with the weakness of it, and it has a high chance of breaking the bond. I'd say Devastating Strike would probably work a little bit faster than Unflailing Assault, but Unflailing Assault and Devastating Strike are pretty much almost the same, except for Unflailing Assault gives you more room to deal damage if the enemy's weak to a certain element that you have. This is another one that's in conjunction with Devastating Strike. Alright, so Devastating Strike basically works out for the most part, but like that's only if you really want to. And as I was saying earlier, if you use a gun, it's the same thing. So like it's whatever you want to do with that. Everything else is very straightforward and not all that bad. So we're going to be having, so Skydiver and Breaker is pretty good. Like, you're going to be doing a lot of damage. You can also use the Warlord. Some people use the Warlord, but I don't really like that one. The only reason why I don't like Warlord is because yes, you increase your burst arts by 17%, but like your burst arts are gonna, like, you know, not really help you as much as some of the other abilities. Like, you can use Warlord, but like I said, if you want to take it, the better route would be Breaker, because you're getting that extra 30% attack even while not in burst mode. Like, this is if you're not in burst mode or in burst mode, because there's no guarantee in a fight that you're going to be in burst mode 100% of the time, unless at the beginning of the match you're doing the smart thing and putting link burst rounds into people and getting link burst rounds back. So I'm just going to show you what my team is using, because this is what my team is using. Alright, so the characters that I'm using is Theme and Claire. Oh, and Lulu, but I'm using Theme and Claire right now. So the reason why I'm using Theme and Claire is because Theme and Claire have two good abilities that really are like the best. Like, okay, so I'll just explain what they do. Okay. So as for Theme, alright, who am I on? Oh, I'm on Claire. Okay. Alright, so here's what I have for Theme. I have Resonance, I have Pep Talk, I have Transfer, and I have Link Happy. So here's what the whole premise is. These are all the extra weapon slots, like the skill slots that you put inside of your weapons that she can have in. Like, these are the ones that she already have, but these are the ones that you can add to her weapon. So here's what I basically did. So Resonance basically, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say what I'm doing right now, basically reduces engage fall off by 2% per level. So that one's really good. You want to keep that up as long as possible so that you don't, you know, falter. You also want to reduce your acceleration trigger fall off by 2%, because like you want your acceleration trigger to stay full as possible. Then you want to increase the AP of your team as high as possible, because the more AP you have, and this is what I'm talking about. Okay, so AP is basically this. It's the points. It's basically skill points that you get for your teammates, and however much AP you get is how much you can improve your teammate and put in new install skills for them to use later on in the game. So if you're wanting to know the build that I'm running for theme, then you're gonna know that it's basically a support build. And Link Happy really helps out, because Link Happy basically lets your teammate know to fire Link Burst rounds at you, so that you can get to burst level 3 as fast as possible. Okay, so another thing is you want to know which engage effect that your partner's using. So this is why I have Theme. Theme has restore HP in increments of 2 and increases effectiveness of shields. So whenever I have an engagement with Theme, I'm getting HP back, and I'm getting more defense with my shield. Even though I'm not going to be using my shield most of the time, unless I'm using a dive build, it's just going to be working out. I'll just be getting that extra HP whenever I go into my engaged form, which she's really good for healing. Like whenever you go into engaged form with Theme is just amazing all around. And her acceleration trigger ability that I also gain is basically melee attacks ignore a percentage of origami defense, which I was talking about earlier with the lunatic. If I were to get the lunatic trigger ability and put it on my character along with Themes, it would be even better. So you would ignore even more defense of the origami than before, and as soon as you go into engage, it'll just break the bond. Like you'll ignore the origami defense and just break the bond right off the bat. So Theme is a really good partner to have in the game, and in fact, like she's really one of the best partners, period. Like because of those two abilities. Like every time when you look at your partner, you want to look at the abilities that they have, and the abilities that they have, you got to make sure that they benefit you for the team. Like this game is all about team play, and if you're playing this game for just to be a solo play, then yeah, that's one thing, you can do it. But if you want to benefit the most out of the game to be as strong as possible, you want to benefit from your team and your team's entire compilation. So that's basically what is going to work. So that's my Theme and her build and everything else that's being used. Okay, so another character that I'm using is Claire. Claire is also really good because here's the burst plugins that she have, and here are the install skills. Now she has a really good line of install skills. Like these install skills are definitely pretty good. You might want to okay, so here's why I'm using Claire and Theme, because Theme is giving me HP plus ignoring origami defense at the same time, and Claire is basically giving me that burst fall off. Like how long you stay in burst mode. Like she's giving me that burst fall off by 12% so that you could stay in burst mode for longer, and she's giving me Valkyrie, which restores OP in increments of 3. So that's if I'm using the gun at the same time while benefiting from the burst fall off. Now that's basically the reason why I'm using her. Also, these abilities are pretty good. Like, for the cardiograph, basically, is sharing information. That basically tells, like, if the origami's at low health or something. And this one also is really good because it increases attack against primary targets, which everybody wants that. Like, that's like the main thing of the game. So yeah, you want to have that. You want to have it to where you can see the enemy's HP status, and you want to have it to where you can work around some of the other things in the game. Alright, so here's the other character that I'll be using and explaining. I'll be explaining Lulu. I do use Lulu, but I haven't put my build category for her yet. I do have one, but I just haven't put it up there only because I haven't used her yet. Well, I have used her, but I haven't used her in a sense of, like, you know, making her one of the main people on my team, but she should be, because I should replace Claire with Lulu, since Lulu does a lot of damage. So here's the only reason why I'm using Claire is for the burst, for the fall off of the burst, so I can use burst mode longer. But for Lulu, she reduces acceleration trigger fall off and increases movement speed by 20. So that really helps out the team, because you basically have your acceleration trigger last longer and you move 20% more faster. So as soon as the engage starts up, you'll be moving 20% faster with less with more time on your acceleration trigger, which is not bad. But it's just that Claire's is more beneficial than Lulu. You can still use Lulu, but it's just that the burst mode is more important than the extra speed that you get. This is also good, which is called Prototype. Increase the speed of melee attacks by 9. This is the same as the Assassin. The Assassin skill that the Assassin's acceleration trigger that you get on your main character. And, like, if both of you have it, then that's like an extra 20%, like a melee attack speed, which I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that if you're going for a hard DPS build, then Lulu is right for your team. Like, you're gonna want to choose Lulu if you're going for hard DPS. Alright, so you got this guy. Okay. Pretty much, if you're looking for like a ranged team for guns, then he's your guy. Like, you want to use that type of ability with him. So he's gonna help you use less stamina and less OP cost, along with using your gun. So that's if you want a gun build. Use him if you want a gun build. He's another one that's pretty good. I mean, you're gonna unlock the rest of them. I'm just telling you the ones that I'm using and the ones that are pretty good. The best ones is literally Flaming and Claire, even if you unlock the rest of the characters. But you could also use other people's characters in the game that you're currently, you know, if you exchange their player cards. Alright, so this one is pretty good. I mean, it's not bad. It's just not as beneficial as Claire's. This one is another one. It helps out, but at the same time, it's not really that great. Last but not least, you've got this one. Melee hits recover 1 HP. So if you do like 3 or 4, if you do like a full attack stream with him, you can get recovered like 20 HP which is, I wouldn't, like, it's not that beneficial. And then this one's okay. You get an extra 15% engage fall off, which could be good. Now, here's the problem with Yuko that I have with Claire. I'm going for the burst control, so I'm gonna stick with that over the engage fall off, because the engage fall off does matter, but you want to try to stick close together with characters that is gonna, you know, help you support. So I'm basically using more support characters, which, yeah, you get an increase of melee attack by 3% and reduces engage fall off by 15, but at the same time, you know, you can use Hugo in place of Claire if you want to. I'm just saying that, you know, Claire and Theme are going to be the best two teammates that you're going to have, because you're getting HP regeneration with Theme, and you're getting burst control fall off by 12%, which when you're in burst mode, like, you want your burst mode to last as long as possible, and that reduces the fall off. Basically, it makes your burst mode last longer. So, yeah, you're gonna want to use those things to make your team better. Like, everything is to build around and to make it as high as possible, but I'm just going to use a loadout that's pretty good. Let's see. I have two options right now. I can use the knife, or I can use the spear like I intended to. Or I can use the dual swords. I think I'm going to go with I'm just gonna use the I might just use the spear this time, but the knife really is good. I'm just gonna show you guys what the knife is, because the knife is definitely good. Alright. So here we go. And you can always change the appearance of your character and everything. So that you get the best benefits that you want. But I'm just going to show you exactly what happens. Alright, this time I don't have Theme. Alright, so I have Hugo and Claire. I can switch Claire out for alright. Might have to go to a more tougher mission. Alright. We'll just do this one. We'll put theme and we'll put Claire. Alright. So you're gonna see what that 50% increased attack does to the bonds. Alright.
Let's get started.
Alright, the engage effect is building up. Bond's about to break. Alright. Alright, engage effect is active. Alright, you see that? Even Theme is doing a lot more damage. That's a 50% damage difference. Alright, engage effect is active. That means my attack is doing 20% more damage. Even if I don't get the 2 devours that I need, I'm still doing 20% more damage. Just with the engage effect alone. And look at that, engage effect activated. Now I'm doing 50% more damage. Look at that. Another thing, if you get incapacitated, you want her to because she gives you a lot more HP back. See, it's all about your team. Your character can be pretty bad, but if you make your team and your skills and everything right, then it won't be as bad. As you can tell firsthand. So basically, I play off of my team's abilities and to enhance my own. And these are abandoned god arcs that you find. Alright, so going back in here and looking at everything, like I said, in order to enhance gameplay, you got to make sure that you build up your team's AP, build up your team, whichever team comp that you want, and you got to get their skills right. You got to get the skills that's necessary, the ones that really apply to you and for your play style. And then you've got to get the right loadout for your weapons and everything. Now you can change what your name is. Like mine is Divine Inferno, so I basically have that for my loadout. Is basically what it's called. You might want to. You can pretty much make whatever suits you, but I'm just going to tell you the weapons that I use the most, which is I use the reshipped knife, I use the knife, and then I use the scythe, and then I use the adamant ring. Those are the three weapons that I use because to me those are the three most powerful weapons in the game, other than the Buster Sword. The Buster Sword, hands down, is one of the best weapons in the game and can be a game changer if someone using it that knows what they're doing. So it really spells out that you can be very versatile with it. So I would say go with the latter and use what works for you, but at the end of the day, you gotta make sure that you have as many install skills as possible, and that you have the right plugins. Like you just gotta have the right burst plugins, because these are my burst plugins for my build, because this is basically what is your blueprint, which is what your build is speaking to you about. Like your build, like each and every person has their own preference and their own character, but this is what your build is basically speaking to you and telling you about what you're doing in the game and what your damage is saying. So here's what your build is doing. Like your build is based off your burst plugins and your install skills. Like, you have to have good install skills in order to make this game work, because you have to have install skills that, you know, accommodate for your weapons. So here's how my build works. So I have, and this is from the beginning. So basically, I have a 10% chance to increase my step speed and distance at, you know, decreasing my stamina, which is pretty good. Then I have reduces stamina cost of actions according to level. So at level 3 burst, my stamina is reduced by 10%, which is really good because I use less stamina to attack whenever I'm in burst. Another thing is reduces until time until engage according to level. That basically lessens the time that I have to engage with another character. Like, if I'm playing with them, you want to make your engage as less as possible so that you can use their build along with your build and get a big buff so that you can take down the origami as fast as possible. And then you want to have something that prevents debuffs. Like, I have the Clear Mind, which basically at 50% prevents debuffs, all debuffs except for corruption, which corruption is when you fight ash origami, which is very important to have debuffs so that you don't get poisoned, so you don't get slowed, so you don't get leaked, like all the other stuff. And at burst level 3, I can't get hit by any debuffs other than corruption at level 3 burst. So it's really good to have that. So basically my build is an all-around build that basically accommodates for the team. So all I'm doing is putting forth the team composition above the individual player character, and to help balance the team better so that my team does more damage. And then my install skills are basically, you know, basic things like increase HP restored when rescued, which recuperate, like my HP is restored, stamina, attack when fighting multiple origami, for leveling, for sharp analysis, and then last but not least, for gaining materials when devouring. So you gain more materials when devouring, and that helps you gather things more quickly for farm. So basically I have a way to level up and farm more efficiently with the build and to be able to progress through the game faster. So pretty much that's it for this video. Like, I have another video that's coming out very soon about, you know, build techniques and which ones to use earlier on from the start so that you can, you know, progress through the game faster. But like, these are the things that you have to pay attention to in order to make a better build in the game. Like, you got to pay attention to your burst plugins. Like, your burst plugins are the most important thing, and you got to pay attention to your install skills. Those are really important. Like, there's five main things that's important in this game: burst plugins, install skill, your engage effect, your acceleration trigger, and last but not least, your burst control unit. And once you get all those down packed, everything else just fits together. So you just gotta get those 5 things down, and that's how your build works in the game. That's how God Eater works. Like, it's very simple, it's very easy to go by. Like, you can do whatever build that you want in the game, period. Like, you can customize your bullets, you can customize things to your liking. It's just that for beginners, you have to watch out and make sure that you're getting the best benefit for not only your character but for your team as well, because a lot of times people don't pay attention to their team in games, and they could do a lot better if they had a better team instead of a better character. Because a lot of times you might have a really good character, but your team could be failing in certain areas. Even if you don't really necessarily want to use your team, or even if, you know, want to use your team to your advantage, I mean, it's a good thing to do. Like, your team is there if you want to use them to your advantage. Me, I'm going to use my team to my advantage because that really helps out the game. Whenever you get to a higher level, your team is going to be very good and you're going to have a better time going through missions. Now, I'm going to do an assault mission before I close the video, but I'm just saying that it's going to really spell out the best. Alright, so here we go. Oh, and don't forget to stack up on consumables. I did forget to mention that. Always have consumables. as you can tell, that's pretty much what team comp is. Like, you just basically got to be able to hold it together long enough to where you can basically help and save your team. As you could tell, there were another teammate that had Skydiver along with me, and basically we got a big boost of attack. Like, I'm talking about, like, it was freaking ridiculous about their attack that we got. Like dang, we got not only the 50%, but we've got like maybe 100% increase of attack, melee attack. Like, that was just ridiculous, because all the skills activated at once as soon as we used the engage effect, and I had my acceleration trigger. So yeah, that was pretty good. Alright, so that's all for the video for today. I have another video coming tomorrow, and I have another video coming out next, and it'll explain everything in the description and everything else. Well, I will be on to explaining a little bit more about God Eater 3 later. Thank you all for watching.